On this Thursday night, police prepare to make their move.
Traitors!
As demonstrators dig in for the third straight week in the nation's capital, Ottawa police warn action is imminent.
I'm not going anywhere. I have no problem with jail.
The defiance on the streets and the debate in Parliament as the battle over the Emergencies Act heats up. Reducing restrictions. More provinces ease public health measures as Canada greenlights another COVID-19 vaccine. The blame game after shelling hits schools in eastern Ukraine. The new warnings and details of a potential Russian attack.
This will happen within the next several days.
Plus, a gripping gold medal game as two hockey juggernauts write the latest chapter in their historic rivalry.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
This is the view from Parliament Hill tonight. The police presence there growing by the hour, along with fears of a coming confrontation. Good evening and thank you for joining us. 21 days since the Ottawa occupation began, defiant demonstrators are digging in, despite repeated warnings from political leaders and police. The city's interim police chief held a press conference late today, and he promised residents that the downtown will look much different by this weekend.
The Ottawa Police Service, the RCMP and the OPP, as well as numerous police agencies in Ontario and Quebec, are now here in Ottawa. We've been bolstering our resources, developing clear plans, and preparing to take action. The action is imminent. To those engaged in the unlawful protest, if you want to leave under your own terms, now is the time to do it.
And in breaking news tonight, police have now begun arresting some of the protesters on Parliament Hill. Our Mike Armstrong is there for us on the ground in Ottawa. Mike, what's the latest?
Well, we did have some arrests here around Parliament Hill, basically just as the weather started going a little crazy. These were officers in large numbers. These were, however, not officers in riot gear. It was more of a surge, a targeted surge perhaps even. Now, there were some contentious moments with the crowd as those arrests were being made. This was not unexpected, by the way. When something happens here, when police make their big push, protesters will not be able to say they weren't warned. Teams of police officers were on the streets Thursday, basically outreach. They've been saying for days protesters should leave or face arrest. Now they're adding to that message. Notices are being posted on how to reclaim a vehicle once it's been towed away.
We the people!
Those messages aren't being well received.
Who are your supervisors? What are you guys doing? You're just people like us.
The warnings are piling up. Child Services is telling parents if they're arrested, they should have plans for the care of their children. Animal Protection is saying if people are in police custody too long, they can lose their pets.
Every nail they try to put in our coffin, we're going to put a screw in theirs.
Another sign things are changing is new fencing. Crews putting an 8-foot barrier in front of the Senate building and in front of Parliament Hill. The reason not immediately apparent to protesters.
I don't understand it.
Well, control in the protest area is about to get tighter. Police say they won't be allowing anyone downtown unless they live or work in the area. Protesters, they say, won't be allowed in. That could lead to confrontations. There are several protest camps or staging areas outside the core where they've been shuttling people back and forth.
We have over 100 checkpoints in this secure area that we've established.
Now, there are protesters in for the long haul, but there are also new voices. This Ottawa woman brought her children downtown despite warnings from Child Services.
No, I don't feel unsafe in my own city.
And the couple in this truck drove in from Peterborough Thursday morning.
Officers are walking all around. They're not doing anything right now.
So far, I'm proud to stand up for my country.
Jerry Richard came from Edmonton with 4 trucks. 4 trucks he says he's ready to lose. He does expect something to happen in the coming days.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're not going anywhere, though.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm standing tall, I'm standing proud, and I'm standing free.
You might end up in jail.
I'm good. I have no problem with jail.
I think it's inevitable at this point.
The tension is affecting some. This was a video posted by a protest organizer, predicting her arrest was likely close, but saying through tears she's ready.
And that's okay. I'm okay with that. And I want you to know that I'm not afraid.
Now, one of the arrests made tonight, we believe, was one of the leaders, not the leader that was in that video, someone else. But this was not the big push. We're still waiting for that. Police are still adding to their numbers. Quebec provincial police are sending officers. Even Vancouver police are sending more officers. Something is coming. Jeff?
Mike Armstrong in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Mike. And the expected police action in Ottawa comes just days after Ontario police successfully broke up another blockade in Windsor. Our Sean O'Shea watched that operation unfold at the Ambassador Bridge, and he joins us now from the protest in Ottawa. So, Sean, given what you just witnessed in Windsor, how do you expect the police operation to go there in Ottawa?
Well, it's going to be difficult and different, Jeff, for a few reasons. One, the weather we're seeing right now. But in Windsor, you had trying to get people away from a roadway that was at the end of a bridge. It wasn't in the middle of an urban center. People were able to come and go as they pleased. It was much different. It was much more easy to control. Here you've got people that are coming from other communities, from other parts of Ottawa. And of course, that's what the police chief talked about in his press conference today, the fact that starting now, they're going to set up 100 checkpoints to declare this safe zone so that people will have to pass through these police checkpoints, provide identification, or at least give some kind of an idea of why they're going into that area. Do they live there? Do they work there? Do they have good reason to be there? The idea is to try to cut off people from coming into this area where we are unless they have a real reason to do that, all the while police try to get rid of the trucks and the protesters who are here right now. Jeff?
And Sean, we can see that snow really coming down there now. What impact could that winter storm have on the police enforcement?
Well, our chief meteorologist in Toronto here at Global says 30 centimeters of snow expected just tonight. And it just started snowing, Jeff, not that long ago. It was a pretty nice day earlier. So what it means is, imagine trying to tow trucks, trying to remove vehicles in an area where the weather is bad, where you got a foot of snow. That's what they're going to have to contend with. The thing is that the people who are still here right now, Jeff, these are people who are diehards. Many of these people have been here for 3 weeks. They're the most committed of the people that are involved in this protest and this action. They are here for the cold, but this weather is going to make it all the more difficult. The police said that they had a lot of tow trucks available. That may be somewhat modified because of the bad weather that we're going to face here. It's going to be quite a weekend, Jeff.
Sean O'Shea reporting from a snowy Parliament Hill. Thanks, Sean.
Okay.
And the federal Liberals are now being pressed to justify their use of the Emergencies Act in response to those protests. The Prime Minister insists the move is necessary, and the House will now sit for 4 days before voting on the legislation on Monday night. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief, Mercedes Stephenson, reports on how the government is using those emergency powers.
On the first day of parliamentary debate over the government's decision to invoke the extraordinary powers of the Emergencies Act, the Prime Minister defended his decision as the only option.
We did it because the situation could not be dealt with under any other law in Canada.
The government is increasingly painting a picture of a hard edge inside the protests. A small but organized group of people and entities who may be willing to use violence, who want to end all public health restrictions and even overthrow the federal government. Something some convoy participants have advocated for right from the start, with memorandums and letters demanding Justin Trudeau be forced out of power. The government has alleged potential coordination between these groups across the country. Speaking to Global News, the Public Safety Minister went a step further.
We are starting to see more and more public reports that show that those individuals who were a part of the Coutts illegal blockade also had spent some time in Ottawa.
A senior government source told Global News that one of the people now facing weapons charges from the Coutts protests was at the Ottawa protests just days earlier. Mendicino says it's not the government's job to determine whether protest planning could cross the line into terrorism plotting, but says he believes security agencies are watching closely.
Law enforcement is gathering intelligence and information.
The Conservatives say the Liberals are not being transparent about the significant new powers, including those that can freeze and suspend finances of those involved in the blockades.
The government should not have the power to close the bank accounts of Canadians on a whim.
Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland defended the measures as necessary.
It gives me no pleasure to impose any of these measures. In fact, we do so with great sorrow. But do not doubt our determination to act, to defend our democracy, to defend our economy, and to restore peace.
Freeland refused to disclose how many bank accounts have been frozen, how much money is now in limbo, how those accounts are actually being selected, or how the government is verifying the identities of the account holders. Also unclear whether those who donated to the GoFundMe campaigns or Give, Send, Go could now face legal consequences, including potentially their own accounts being affected. Jeff?
A lot of unanswered questions there. Thanks, Mercedes. And as protesters call for an end to vaccine mandates and pandemic restrictions, Omicron cases appear to be waning, and the next phase of Ontario's reopening plan is now in effect. As of today, restaurants, gyms, and cinemas have no capacity limits. Sports arenas and theaters can operate at 50% capacity, nightclubs at 25%. Social gatherings can have 50 people indoors and 100 outdoors. There are no limits on organized events, such as weddings, if they require proof of vaccination or if that event is held outdoors. And in BC, meanwhile, bars and nightclubs can now reopen to full capacity, and dancing is also allowed. Movie theaters, sports arenas, and performance spaces are back to 100% capacity, though proof of vaccination is still required. Weddings and funeral receptions are also allowed, and there are no limits on household gatherings. Health Canada has just approved use of a new COVID-19 vaccine for people aged 18 and older. Novavax is the 5th shot to receive the green light in this country, and it's the first protein-based vaccine available here. Health Canada says it was 90% effective in preventing symptoms in clinical trials and 100% effective at preventing serious illness. The agency recommends 2 doses given at least 8 weeks apart. Last year, the federal government struck a deal to produce batches of that vaccine at a facility in Montreal. Western warnings of a Russian attack. Coming up, new details and escalating violence in eastern Ukraine. Welcome back. We're learning new details tonight about what the White House claims is a Russian plot to invade Ukraine. The new warnings come amid reports of a dramatic spike in ceasefire violations in eastern Ukraine over the past week. The United Nations is expressing concern and urging restraint on all sides. Today saw heavy shelling in Russian-speaking regions of that country as the U.S. and its allies warn that Vladimir Putin is planning to use a false flag attack to create a pretext for military action. Jackson Prosco reports from Washington.
Shelling rang out across eastern Ukraine as Russian-backed forces allegedly opened fire, striking targets including a kindergarten. The children had been whisked away just moments before. The U.S. now believes there's little doubt a full-scale Russian attack is coming. Nearly half of Russia's amassed forces are within 50 kilometers of Ukraine's border.
My sense this will happen within the next several days.
Yet U.S. President Joe Biden said he had no plans to call Russia's Vladimir Putin. And in a worrying sign, Russia expelled the deputy U.S. ambassador from Moscow after delivering written demands that the U.S. claw back NATO or face so-called military technical measures.
We don't know what will happen, but what we do know is that Russia has amassed the biggest force we have seen in Europe for decades.
Russia's claim to have moved troops away from Ukraine is false, according to NATO. Instead, they say an extra 7,000 troops were added to the 150,000 already perched and ready to strike.
I am here today not to start a war, but to prevent one.
At the UN Security Council, the U.S. Secretary of State led the international rallying cry against war, outlining how Putin might carry out an invasion by first creating a false pretext.
We don't know exactly the form it will take. It could be a fabricated so-called terrorist bombing inside Russia, the invented discovery of a mass grave, a staged drone strike against civilians, or a fake, even a real, attack using chemical weapons.
Russia has already claimed mass graves exist in disputed pro-Russian regions of Ukraine, and Putin is said to be preparing a rare address to the Russian parliament. The U.S. says it believes any Russian action would target specific groups and key sites within Ukraine, including the capital, Kyiv. All the while, Ukraine soldiers on. President Volodymyr Zelensky toured the front lines for a second straight day, walking a fine line, staring down the Russian threat while trying not to get dragged into a bloody conflict. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Still ahead, some frightening moments for ferry passengers sailing in stormy waters. In Germany, a fierce storm packing hurricane-force winds caused extensive damage and led to some scary moments aboard a passenger ferry. Wow, the terrifying moment happened on a river near Hamburg. Water crashed right through the windows as a wave washed over the bow of the vessel. Well, with the looming threat of an invasion in Ukraine, Kyiv has just signed a new agreement with the UK and Poland. The three countries will now coordinate on cyber, energy, security, and countering disinformation. Poland's involvement is key as NATO looks to bolster its Eastern European flank in case of wider fallout from Russian aggression. Our Europe Bureau Chief, Crystal Gomansing, is in Poland tonight with more. Crystal.
Jeff, Poland was named in Russian demands late last year for de-escalation around Ukraine. It wanted to see multinational NATO forces leaving the country, but we've actually seen the opposite happen. NATO is flexing its muscle, showing Russia that it will not leave member states vulnerable. It's business as usual on the streets of southeastern Poland, but everyone knows the concerns facing neighboring Ukraine.
It is quite a nervous situation in Ukraine, and she definitely would not to wear like Ukrainian shoes in this part.
If Russian forces roll over parts of Ukraine, human impacts will be felt right across Eastern Europe. Maciej Milchanowski, a retired Polish army captain, says Russia is playing a long game, looking to rebuild a sphere of influence.
After Ukraine and the Baltic states, the next will be Poland for sure.
The unified response of NATO and the fact that reinforcements keep arriving in Poland demonstrates the West's willingness to push back against the Kremlin.
I had a lot of experiences with Americans in Iraq.
As a soldier, Milchanowski took part in 2 overseas missions. As a teacher, his analysis is informed by hard-earned experience.
This is the most important. If we force him to change the strategies, to limit their ambitions, it will be the biggest win of the West.
The wild card is Vladimir Putin himself. What is he willing to do? That is why we are seeing NATO forces being bolstered along the Eastern European flank, weapons and financial supports being given to Ukraine, and the ongoing urgent diplomatic talks that continue. Jeff?
Crystal Gomansing on the ground in Poland tonight. Thanks, Crystal. Canada's Golden Game. Up next, the latest victory in a long-time hockey rivalry. A heartbreaking end to a controversial Olympic Games for Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva. The 15-year-old stumbled during the free skate portion of the women's competition, landing in 4th place. She found herself at the center of a doping scandal after it was revealed she tested positive for a banned substance before arriving in Beijing. One of her fellow athletes competing under the Russian Olympic Committee flag captured the gold. And Canada added another silver medal to its tally today. Freestyle skier Marielle Thompson had an explosive finish in ski cross. The Whistler resident was dead last for most of the final until a late double pass saw her earn a spot on the podium. It is Canada's 20th medal of these Olympic Games, 4 gold, 5 silver, and 11 bronze. And the latest gold medal came in women's hockey. Team Canada defeated their U.S. rivals 3-2. The two teams have met in all but one hockey final since it was made an Olympic sport over 2 decades ago. Eric Sorensen looks back at their remarkable rivalry.
It is as repetitive and predictable a championship as you will find in sport. Canada-USA women's hockey. But the Olympics is about excellence, and what these two teams have achieved is an unparalleled competitive rivalry. It came down once more to this: Canada's superstar Marie-Philippe Poulin scoring, and in a fiercely fought final, Canada winning. Poulin has scored in the last 4 Olympic finals, drawing comparisons to legend Hayley Wickenheiser.
This one in particular is very special. Everybody
was so dialed in to be able to bring back that gold medal, and I think that's what makes it so special.
Canada may have an edge historically, but they are bitter rivals who make each other better. Women's hockey has been played in the last 7 Winter Olympics. Canada has now won 5 gold medals, the United States the other 2. To truly appreciate this unrivaled duopoly in a single sport, since the Women's World Hockey Championships began in 1990, Canada and the U.S. have won every title in the 27 World and Olympic finals, finishing second to each other 25 times.
The Olympics are obviously a massive stage, and I think we showcased in this tournament, the skill and the speed at which we're playing the game.
The Canadian women's game would not be what it is without a worthy rival and vice versa. American Hillary Knight calls it the best rivalry in sports, hands down. It's wonderful, she says, the way we've elevated this game and continue to elevate the sport.
I think that's what separates this rivalry because it's happened so often, and you see those two things, the excellence on the ice and the pride in their country.
Finland, Sweden, and other countries love hockey too, but must do more to catch up in the women's game.
It's definitely going to take NSOs stepping up and investing in their women's programs because we see that level of investment, it pays off.
Sarah Nurse was a 7-year-old when she watched the Canadian women win their first gold against the Americans 20 years ago. The next generation is watching now.
Young female hockey players out there who are probably going to put us all to shame one day.
The rivalry will be waiting. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Congratulations and a lot to look forward to. That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is from Mount Washington near Courtenay, BC on Vancouver Island. There are beautiful spots all over Canada, so please email us yours to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. Take care and have a great night.